Hello again, everybody. I hope your day is going well. Today is 6th of August. Now it's 8 o'clock in the evening, Moscow time, and a second live stream for a day in which I will share all the main news that basically are making headlines here in Russia during the day. And of course, first of all, we will talk about a visit of special envoy of US President Steve Witkoff. I spoke about this in morning's live stream, but we have some additional information on that. And without further delay, let's start our news segment now. And not surprisingly, I will say, Russian president did actually honor the envoy of U.S. President Donald Trump and wasted 3 hours of his time while talking to Steve Witkoff in the Kremlin. So reports are that Vladimir Putin's meeting with U.S. Presidential Special Envoy Steve Witkoff or Steven Witkoff has ended in the Kremlin. Their head of the state press service reported the conversation lasted about 3 hours, and shortly after these negotiations or talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Witkoff ended, aide of Russian President Ushakov, traditionally at this point, come out to the press and made a shorter statement. Let me give you his statement also. So President Vladimir Putin and the U.S. leader's special envoy, Steven Witkoff, discussed the Ukrainian crisis at the meeting. Presidential aide Yuri Ushakov reported. We have a quote from him. If we name their topics, the first of all, of course, it is a Ukrainian crisis, and the second topic is the prospects for the possible development of strategic cooperation between U.S. and Russia. Ushakov said, and dear friends, I don't know about you, but I have no idea what Ushakov is talking about, what strategical cooperation between U.S. and Russia when U.S. president literally on daily basis insults Russia, insults Russian people, threatens Russia and Russian people. What the hell is going on there, friends? I mean, maybe you can explain this to me, but I definitely losing any understanding of this whole freaking situation. In addition, Ushakov said that, in particular, President Putin conveyed some signals to the United States on the Ukrainian issue and received similar ones from Donald Trump through Witkoff. According to Ushakov, situation now is that our president has full information, that is our signals and signals from the Trump. And Trump has not yet been informed of the results of this meeting. Therefore, I would refrain from more detailed comments. Let's see when Witkoff can report on the conversation that took place today to Trump. After that, obviously, we will be able to supplement my comments now with something more substantial, Ushakov added, and that's about it. That's about it when it comes to this 3 hour talks. 3 hour wasted time of Russian president when he was talking to this nobody, Witkoff, right? Yet again, I'm disappointed. I'm not gonna lie, by the way. I'm disappointed that Russian president is not taking a stronger stance in regards to this individual that formally is called the U.S. president, Donald Trump. I'm disappointed that he wasted so much time talking to this nobody, right? Because we all understand, dear friends, that U.S. leadership cannot be trusted. We all understand that U.S. leadership, including Trump, including Witkoff, are engaged in deception, right? They use diplomacy as a deception. They prove that. I mean, we have factual evidences of that, right? Trump himself was engaged in a deception, personally was engaged in a deception on behalf of Israel when U.S. was formally engaged in nuclear talks with Iran, right? At the very time when U.S. and Israel was preparing decapitation strike on Iran. And despite all the evidences that there is, I don't know, man. I don't know what is going on, but Russian president is still engaged in this nonsensical stuff, right? Okay, by the way, okay, maybe maybe I don't understand something. Maybe Trump suddenly become a better person in last 24 hours, and maybe U.S. political class become angels, right, in just last 24 hours, and due to this miracle, these 3-hour talks between Russian president and Witkoff will actually have some positive results. But to be realistic, we'll understand that this is all setback, I will say, for Russia, right? Because no positive results going to come out as a result of either these talks or any other talks, by the way, right? Western elites have to be changed. Western so-called elites have to be changed, by the way, because current ones cannot be trusted even for a second, right? And me, as an ordinary, just one citizen of Russian Federation, is definitely not okay with Russia being engaged in this so-called diplomacy, where we've been insulted. Basically, I feel myself being insulted, right? Because my country is engaged in a freaking games that US is orchestrating, right? Why, for God's sake? Why? Total nonsense, dear friends. And I guess very many people here in Russia are also disappointed, by the way, big time. I don't think Kremlin cares that much at this point, but if they continue this way, well, they're going to feel the heat for sure from society, right? Especially when we have more information that confirms that all these so-called diplomatic steps from US and Witkoff's arrival in Moscow and stuff is just a deception operation to potentially divert her attention of the Russian leadership from actually, main points, main topics, right? And to potentially caught Russia off guard as Iran was caught off guard, right? Just about like months ago or a little more. And to confirm this, dear friends, we have, for example, this report that Trump, even before he get any information about these talks, right? If he was serious, if U.S. leadership was serious about these talks between U.S. and Russia, then at least Trump would wait before he will implement additional tariffs on India, right? But no, he did not wait for nothing. He went to impose additional 25% tariffs on imports from India. While he has no idea is Russia agrees on whatever ultimatum Washington has or not. Is that enough confirmation that U.S. is engaged, the U.S. leadership is engaged in a deception? No. Also, we heard this report that Trump had a phone conversation with Zelensky, last hour or two. This is just a recent developments. So U.S. President Donald Trump had begun a phone conversation with Vladimir Zelensky. Axios journalist Barak Ravid reports, citing sources familiar with the situation. I guess these talks between Trump and Zelensky already ended. Earlier, Ravid reported that Trump could have spoken with Zelensky on Wednesday after the meeting in Moscow between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. Leader Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. We don't know any details at this point what Trump and Zelensky discussed during their talks, but we can have an informed guess, by the way, isn't it? U.S., UK, France, Germany, and other hostile nations to Russia, hostile states to Russia, are planning next phase of escalation, military escalation against us, right? They are planning to conduct large-scale cyber attacks on Russian Federation, starting maybe from tomorrow even, by the way, but definitely from 8th of August, when Trump's this formal ultimatum will expire. They are planning to use their assets on Russian territory to conduct large-scale sabotage operations to distract the life of Russian society as much as they possibly can. And of course, they plan to dramatically increased long-range strikes deep into Russian territory with the drones and the missiles. We all know this, right? We all know this, and I guess Trump during today's talks just once again demanded from Zelensky focus of the strikes to be Moscow and St. Petersburg. I think that would be one of the topics that they discussed, because I reminded you, friends, that before, during their previous conversation that took place on 4th of July or something, allegedly, based on reports from Western media, Trump was demanding from Zelensky strikes on St. Petersburg and Moscow. And after that day, we actually see, isn't it, significant increase of these long-range strikes towards both cities, St. Petersburg and Moscow. Anyways, we will find out sometime in the future what Trump and Zelensky did spoke about, but most likely about provocations that they are planning against us, right? Meanwhile, Zelensky himself, by the way, has rejected the limited ceasefire with Russia, and he spoke about the topic of limited ceasefire because earlier Bloomberg, Western propaganda outlet, reported that Moscow plans to propose a pause in air operations. Allegedly, by the way, allegedly, Moscow agrees on a partial ceasefire and to stop air operations, which means to stop long-range precise missile and drone strikes, to stop Russian Air Force to conducting strikes on enemy military infrastructure and their personnel and logistics and so on. And if true, by the way, I checked Russian media. I did not see no confirmation of this report from Bloomberg anywhere, literally anywhere. I mean, no one is talking about it. But if Bloomberg's report is correct, and if Russian leadership agreed on a partial ceasefire, well, this is another topic that Russian society not going to take well, by the way. Many people here in Russia will question big time such a decision. But yet again, let's keep in mind that this is an alleged development because we cannot trust Bloomberg, isn't it? We cannot trust Bloomberg, and therefore, in the headlines of today's video, in the headline, I did say that alleged partial ceasefire agreed, right? Because this is what Bloomberg is reporting, but yet again, I'm not convinced that this is true because, yet again, society here in Russia, and I guess also militaries and just about everybody, by the way, are going to be very much upset that Russian side basically bow down to U.S. And agreed, at least partially, to obey some ultimatum or the orders from the Washington. And as we all know, their friends in Washington and their other capitals from the West are demanding 30-day ceasefire, right? They were demanding complete ceasefire. And Moscow was reluctant to agree on that. And, well, now Bloomberg is reporting that Moscow is, agreeing kind of on the partial ceasefire, to stop its air operations. Let's see, we're going to find out today, tomorrow, day after, isn't it, if this report is true or not. But I'm really completely losing understanding of what Russian leadership is up to. Because, what the hell, man? You are talking to these morons, right? From that represent administration from the U.S., and if you then same time agreed on a partial ceasefire, then you know what? Well, I have no comments on that, man. This is just too bad, man. World gonna laugh at us, for God's sake. What we are doing, man. But anyways, let me give you this report from our team that Zelensky rejects any limited ceasefire with Russia. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky has rejected any limited ceasefire with Russia, insisting that Kyiv will only agree to a complete halt in hostilities. His statement came in the wake of reports from Bloomberg that Moscow planned to propose a pause in air operations. Moscow and Kyiv have agreed to several partial ceasefires since the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022. Both sides have also accused each other of violating their agreements. Following a US-mediated 30-day agreement to pause strikes on energy infrastructure earlier this year, Moscow reported that Kiev's forces had violated the truce over 100 times. And, yes, this is true, by the way. Kiev regime was violating this partial ceasefire agreement literally on daily basis. And if, despite that, Moscow will now propose or agree on a partial ceasefire again, as Bloomberg is reporting, then just too bad, man. We're gonna be laughed at all over the world, man. And maybe Russian president don't really cares about it. Maybe his inner circle don't really cares about it. Okay, but I don't want Russia to be laughed at, right? And many people worldwide, we should keep in mind and be realistic, by the way. Many people worldwide no longer see Russia as a major superpower. You know why? Because of this constant restraint that Russian leadership, for whatever reason, is demonstrating for the last 3+ years. Because everybody, or almost everybody, is seeing this constant restraint, no matter what kind of and what level of provocations NATO going to come up with, including attacks on Russian nuclear triad. This restraint has been seen as a weakness of Russia, right? Am I correct? I am, by the way, right? So yes, let's see what is going to happen. By the way, I'm 100% convinced that all these talks, by the way, is useless. US will escalate with Russia big time in next 24 to 48 hours, US and NATO, and therefore it is even more upsetting that Russian president wasted 3 hours, by the way, talking to this freaking nobody, man. Who the hell is Witkoff, man? Who is that bitch? He was met by Russian president's envoy, right, Dmitriev. That was enough, right? They could exchange opinions right there and then, and that's it. Witkoff could F off from Russia. But no, Russian president had to waste 3 hours, man. What the hell? Crazy. And as I said, Trump did not wait to receive any information about these talks between Putin and Witkoff. He went ahead with the additional 25% tariffs on Russian strategic ally, India. As he basically promised yesterday that he will do, right? We have a response from Indian Foreign Ministry on this hostile step from US. I can give you a statement from Indian Foreign Ministry. United States has in recent days targeted India's oil imports from Russia. We have already made clear our position on this issue, including the fact that our imports are based on the market factors and done with the overall objective of ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people of India. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that US should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interests. We reiterate that these actions are unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interest. This is a statement from Ministry of External Affairs of India, which is their foreign ministry, basically. And yes, I mean, escalation continues. And as I said, in next 24 to 48 hours, we should expect next phase of escalation from NATO against Russia to begun, right? Also interesting news that I think worth our attention, that India and Russia have signed a protocol on deepening industrial and technological cooperation, which is a good thing. Obviously, India is a strategical partner of the Russian Federation, and strengthening ties and cooperation between the two nations is definitely move forward. And also, there are some reports, by the way, on media that due to this pressure from the West, due to additional sanctions or the tariffs that US is imposing on India, probably EU will follow. EU, UK, EU member states, UK, and other countries from the collective West will follow, and also pressure India whichever way they can, right? And therefore, there are speculations on the internet that Russia might actually, if India continues cooperate with Russia, buy Russian energy sources, then they might receive a substantive discount, significant discount, by the way, to somehow compensate for the losses that India will potentially suffer due to this hostility from the collective West countries. Let's see. This is the speculations at this point. We cannot know for sure if Russia will sell oil to India with a significant discount or not. Maybe this will happen. Also, we have this report that Trump tasked Secretary of Commerce to identify whether other countries are directly or indirectly purchasing Russian oil, threatens punitive tariffs against these countries too. And yet again, either Trump is playing around or messing around, probably this is the case, or he is just too ill-informed because, well, when it comes to Russian oil, it's a number of European countries, by the way, that are buying Russian oil, right? Number of China is buying Russian oil, by the way. I mean, you don't need to guess or conduct additional investigation. China is buying Russian oil. They are very open about it, right? And the last time I checked, the Chinese foreign ministry stated that it's nobody's freaking business what China will buy where and why. It's only Chinese business, right? They don't give a damn about U.S. restrictions or anything, right? So I don't know what kind of game is that on part of Trump, but at this point, this moron was, and he's acting so irresponsibly that at this point, I guess very few, if any, people in this world actually understands what the hell is going on in the White House or in Washington in general, right? Also, as I reported this morning, Trump plans to make a statement today in a couple of hours' time, by the way, in about 2 or 3 hours' time. U.S. President Donald Trump will make a statement from their Oval Office of the White House on Wednesday. The subject of their statement has not been disclosed. This is stated in the work schedule published by their press service of the head of the Washington administration. And I was thinking that Trump, during the statement, will probably attack India again. And, well, he did not wait. He did not wait until this statement is being scheduled. He went on to actually impose sanctions already. But probably, yes, during this statement today, Trump will once again threaten India with the tariffs, once again threaten Russia with their escalation. Once again, probably he will try to intimidate just about every country, by the way, that cooperates with Russia. But most importantly, what we should keep in mind is that, well, the U.S. cannot actually harm emerging multipolar world, right? In such a way that the U.S. will be in a position to dictate the terms, right? How should they behave or not? India's position clearly demonstrates the times when U.S. was unchallenged ruler of this world sort of is finished. But nevertheless, there will be some tariffs, some sanctions. Okay, we can deal with that. We'll understand this, but I think we should be more focused on inevitable, in my personal opinion, military escalation that NATO is about to begin against Russia. And this escalation will be on an unprecedented scale. So much so that most likely Russian president, who is clearly, by the way, don't want the escalation, right? That's why he met with Witkoff. He wants to avoid escalation, next phase of escalation, by any means, right? With all means, or maybe most likely he understood that Russian public wouldn't receive his steps nicely, kindly, when he is wasting these 3 hours talking to this nobody that Witkoff is, right? I think he knows perfectly well that society would not receive kindly if Moscow will once again trap himself with some sort of partial ceasefire or whatever. But yet again, we have every indicator to believe that Putin tries everything, right? He is desperate to avoid to avoid the next phase of escalation. And you know what? He does not looks like himself, man. It was a Putin that was saying, in the past that if a fight is inevitable, then strike first. That was Putin, by the way. He grew up on the streets of St. Petersburg, right? On streets of Leningrad, by the way. And on at least one or maybe several occasions, he said he was remembering his past. That he was saying that if fight is inevitable, then strike first. That gives you some leverage, right? And that's correct, by the way. This rule works on the streets, and this rule works in geopolitics too. If fight is inevitable, then just strike first. And now, instead of striking first, because fight is already going on, by the way, it's not just inevitable. We already are in fight. NATO is already waging war against us, right? We can call it a proxy war or whatever, but NATO, Western countries, US, UK, France, Germany, and you name it, all of them, by the way, maybe with one or two exceptions like Hungary, Slovakia, they all are waging war against us. So this fight has already begun. So strike back, for God's sake. Don't waste time on the nonsense that West is proposing when it comes to this so-called diplomatic talks or something. They are trying to fool us all, man. And how many times they're going to fool us? Are we really fool? Or do we have brains after all? Or brain cells? Can we learn at least on our own mistakes? They fool us with the Minsk one. They fool us when they promised that they would not move their military infrastructure closer to Russia after Soviet Union collapsed. They lied, isn't it? They lied year after year after year after year, right? And they pulled into NATO entire Eastern Europe, right? All of it. And then in 2008, they went to claim that Georgia and Ukraine also going to become a NATO, right? They fool us with the agreement that was reached in 2014 between Western leaders and Kiev leadership of Ukraine at the time under the presidency of Yanukovych. Many people forget that there was an agreement in place, by the way, and the Western countries were not just participants on negotiations, but guarantors, right? Guarantors that this agreement would work, right? And so there should be de-escalation and yearly elections. But instead of that, literally on the next day, West authorized forceful takeover in Kiev. So they fool us then too, right? Then after that, after 2014, when civil war broke out in eastern Ukraine, West fooled us with the Minsk I agreement, Minsk II agreement, and with everything, with absolutely everything that West was engaged, right? And we still somehow believing that we can have a meaningful agreement talks or agreements with the collective West, in this particular case with US, that Washington will honor. Are we stupid? Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. I'm so disappointed. I mean, I cannot even, express how disappointed I am, but it is what it is, man. Clearly, by the way, at least we all know that Russian side, objectively, by the way, try everything they could to avoid next phase of escalation, isn't it? Russian President Vladimir Putin is actually trying literally everything to avoid next phase of escalation. Even though I'm quite sure, by the way, he's a heavyweight, one of the few heavyweights on geopolitical scale for a reason, right? He knows perfectly well. He should know perfectly well that U.S. will not honor no agreement with Russia, right? Or the collective West, for that matter. He should know perfectly well that next phase of escalation is inevitable, and collective West will um, not stop the plans that they have against Russia, right? But still, I guess he has some, I don't know, some little hope that maybe some miracle will happen, and we will manage to de-escalate, and that's why he's wasting time talking to Witkoff, and I guess that's what it is, right? Because I refuse to believe that Putin is so naive that he actually believes that he can have an agreement of any sort with the U.S. President Donald Trump, and Trump will honor this agreement. I mean, it's freaking nonsense, right? You cannot be that naive, man. You just cannot. Anyways, dear friends, as I said, man, I'm lost for words, man. This is just too freaking insane what we are observing nowadays, right? And before I end new segment, dear friends, of this late live stream today, let me give you this report that Rubio was asked, will more anti-Russian sanctions still go into effect after Putin-Witkoff talks? And Rubio responded that hopefully an announcement will be made soon, maybe positive, maybe not. We'll see. That's Rubio's answer. I can give you a video, by the way, of this short conversation between him and the report.
Russian sanctions still go into effect later this week after the Witkoff meeting with President Putin?
Thank you. We'll have more to say about that later on. We're working for Ambassador Witkoff's on his way back now. We just got off with him a few minutes ago. We'll have some other discussions throughout the day, and then hopefully there'll be some announcements here fairly soon. Maybe positive, maybe not. We'll see.
Did Russia agree to a ceasefire?
Mm-hmm. Okay, by the way. We will see in about allegedly, based on reports that I see in media, Trump will make his statement today at 11 p.m. Moscow time. So you can take that as a reference to adjust time for region that you are from, right? And let's see what Trump will say. But unfortunately, I'm more than convinced. I have no doubts, basically, that we're gonna witness, we're gonna observe next phase of escalation. It's just inevitable, by the way. No matter how much we want to see the escalation, no, man. Until someone will force globalists, neocons, and rest in the West that are actually in charge to face the reality and to act adequately, they're not gonna change their behavior, by the way. It's not happening. Only language they understand is force, right? Only language they understand is force, and until someone will force them to act adequately, they will not, which means constant escalation then, until someone will actually put Western so-called elites in their place. This someone might be Russia or might be some other country, by the way. We will find out. But this is it for a new segment, dear friends. I decided not to wait until tomorrow to share this latest information in regards to Witkoff's visit and the rest. Although in tomorrow's live stream, of course, I will touch upon these topics also with some additional information that will be available for the time. And so if you like this new segment, dear friends, please click that like button and leave some commentary, and after stream will end in a comment section. I will scroll now. And if I see a question directed to me, I will try to answer and be informative. So, as always, dear friends, capital Q or capital letters will make it easier to spot the question. Okay. Deadly is commenting, why are you so unhinged? Stop the war narrative. If you were in charge, we would be all dead enough. You know what? If I was in charge, Russian enemies would be dead for sure by now. I can tell you that. Right? I wouldn't exercise no restraint, by the way. I can tell you this much. And I'm not going to stop nothing. I want my enemies, I want enemies of Russia to be neutralized. Why should I stop, man? You think West has some inherited rights to kill Russian citizens, to harm Russia, to push Russia whenever they want, and Russia should not strike back? That's what you think, sir? From where this sickening attitude is coming from? In the West, by the way, in the Western public, that you guys are somehow exceptional, you are special, and the rest of the people, I mean, not even people, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and no one should say word about it. No one should resist. No one should do nothing. No, man, this is not the way world should operate. You do something wrong, you should be smashed, by the way, straight away, so that you will learn a lesson and will act accordingly after that. So I'm not going to stop nothing, though. You attack us, I want you to learn the lesson hard way then. And that means we should strike back, and strike back hard, by the way. That's how it should be. That's it. And no one is forcing you to see my videos, by the way, anyways. You can go and watch CNN, you will see there probably what you like, Okay, dear friends, okay, I guess that's about it for today's the second live stream. Thank you all for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.